Hi everyone, welcome back to another Drift Cars JP video. Today I'm going to show you how to do a basic service on a 2014 Hilux, which is a 3-litre diesel D4D. This is a 5-speed auto. What we're going to do, we're just going to do a basic service, nothing over the top, but it's going to be quite a long video because I'm going to show you step by step with I'm not going to leave anything out. So if you're at home and you're not really sure about how to service your own vehicle, this is a good video because I'll do step by step, show you how to undo things, what to look for, what other issues you can find on your Hilux and stuff like that. So what we've got a bunch of parts here. What we're going to do today, so we've got our engine oil, which I always recommend Penrite with all my services. This uses 10W40. You'll need to buy the 10 litre for these. They use around about 7.5 litres, I think, but don't quote me on that. Once I drain it out, we'll work out that. So we've got a genuine oil filter. That's the part number you need if you're going to use a genuine oil filter for it. So the oil filter comes with a sun plug washer as well, so make sure you get one of them as well. So this is just your standard Toyota oil filter. Comes with just the sun plug gasket. We're also going to be doing front brakes, but I'm going to do the front brakes in a different video because it'll make this video too long otherwise. So we'll do the front brakes in a different video. We're also going to do a fuel filter today as well. I'll also show you, that's the pad number if you do need front brakes, but like I said, I'll upload 2 videos. This is your fuel filter, so we're going to do the diesel fuel filter on it, which is a cartridge style filter. So I'll show you how to pull that out and change the fuel filter on as well. We're also going to be doing diff oil on this one today. The diff oil, what's recommended for these is the 80W90 for these. So you don't have to have the Outback one, you can just use any 80W90 on them. And then we're going to change the coolant. So this is a pre-mixed coolant, so we've got another 7 litres sitting on the ground. So we're going to do that and show you how to bleed the coolant as well. And if we've got time, we're going to do the brake fluid on it as well. But I might actually do that with the different brake video. So what you're going to need for your service today, you need an oil filter claw, 3/8 extension because the oil filters on these sit quite low in the engine bay, and a 14mm socket. You can use a 6-inch or a longer extension because you can do these without actually having to pull the tray on underneath. And obviously you'll need a drain tray and obviously a funnel to fill it up as well. So what we'll do is we'll get it jacked up and we'll go from there. Okay, now we've got the bonnet open. I'm going to show you a few things to check on your like fluid levels and stuff like that before you start your service, which is always good to check early because if you find a problem up here, generally you might find a problem down below. So good things to check your brake fluid. Now if your brake fluid's low, which this is on the max level, it's generally only because you need pads. It's not normally because you've got a leak or anything like that. Now while you're under here, you want to check your turbo outlet hoses. Make sure there's no oil, like heaps of oil residue or anything like that, like sitting up around here where the clamps are. That all looks pretty good. Check your obviously coolant level. We're going to be changing that, but if your coolant's excessively low, that will obviously indicate you've got a leak as well. And also you want to check your drive belt. Now this is not your timing belt, this is your drive belt. So what you want to do is make sure the drive belt doesn't have any cracks in it. I'll see if we can get the torch in there. Now you won't see cracks on this side of the belt, you'll see it on the bottom side of the belt, which is down here. So I'll just move that torch, position the camera a bit better. So if you find it's got cracks across there, across this part of the belt, the belt needs to be replaced, which it's either something you can do yourself or take it to Toyota or another mechanic or something like that if you're not confident in doing it. Always a good time, grab your clutch fan, make sure your clutch fan's got resistance in it. Like you should see, this won't spin, it will stop. That's what you want them to do. If this moves really freely, like just spins back and forth with no real resistance, your clutch fan's worn out. That can be a reason that your vehicle will overheat as well. Now obviously check your power steering fluid, make sure that's all up on the upper level on it. Now on these, this is your diesel fuel filter here on them. Now we'll show you later on how to take that off, and we're going to change the filter on it. Now if you want to know, this is where your oil filter sits. So the oil filter sits down quite low in these. But what's really good on these, once you loosen them off, they've got a drain, so it actually drains down the back of the motor and doesn't actually go all over everything, which is a good thing too. So now we'll yeah, so that's basically all you need to check on the upper side. So we'll go underneath and we'll have another look there too. Now before I brought this into the garage, I've done an oil flush on it. So you put this in, run it for about 10 minutes, and with a diesel engine, you don't need to put it through in every service, but probably every sort of second to third or fourth service that you do on it, it's good just to run this, just because the diesels are so dirty. So what I do is I always just crack the oil cap when you first start it, and I always just lift up the dipstick. And you don't have to do your oil hot, you can do it cold. If the car's sat overnight and you haven't driven a car, there's no reason why you can't drain it cold, like, because all the oil from the last time you've driven, it's all dropped to the sump. But the only thing is you'll have to let it drain for a lot longer than what you would do with a hot drain. So this is reasonably hot. It's not like gonna burn you, but if you do it hot, just be careful, make sure you wear gloves, have a rag handy if you're going to wipe the oil off, because you don't want to burn yourself. So that's why if you are an amateur and you're unsure of what you're doing, just drain it cold. It's better to change the oil than to not change it at all. So we'll get underneath and we'll drop this oil. Now when you jack your Hilux up, this is your jacking point underneath here. This is the best part to jack from. Jack stands on these, depends on how big your jack stands and how tall they go. It's fine to put them sort of just underneath the rear lower control arm bush. You can mount them off on that bracket that runs across there, the subframe cross brace. You can mount them there as well. If you're only going to do on the oil and filter change, you don't even need to jack it up. You can do this and quite easily get underneath these without jacking the things up, which is always good, and especially if yours is lifted as well. So yeah, so that's your best point to jack it up. And always use jack stands. Don't lay up underneath your car without any sort of jack stands. And if you are stuck and you have to use your bottle jack out of the back, at least throw the spare wheel or throw something underneath the car, so that if it does fail, you do have room to get out from underneath. Okay, now underneath the back here, this is where your sump drain is for your oil. So if you look where your steering rack is, so I'll move it back as far as I can, just so you can sort of work out in relation to where you've got to be. So there's your front wheel. So if you come under here and look right up underneath the back here, there's your sump drain. Now it's going to run all over your cross member as well, make it a little bit of a mess, but that's not a real big issue. So we'll crack that off and we'll get the oil draining. So this is now, you need your 14mm, so you can feel up in the back there. I'll do this blind. So just crack it. It shouldn't be overly tight, your sump. You never need to do it up crazy, but just beware, once you drop this, it's going to come out pretty quickly and probably make a bit of a mess. So, and just like I said, just be careful if you are doing it hot. It's best to wear a pair of gloves when you're going to drain your oil. So there we go. Like I said, you're always going to get plenty all over you. And the reason I wear gloves too is because diesel's so dirty, you can never wipe it off your hands. It's the worst oil ever, but they work really well. And like I said, it's already on my arm, so we'll take this glove off, and then now we'll let that drain. When it's hot, just let it drain until it comes to a drip, and that's generally enough. So now we'll move on with we'll get these wheels off and we might do the brakes. So I'm going to do that as a separate video. So if you want to know how to do front brakes on a Toyota Hilux, because while this is draining, you might as well go and do some other jobs. So I'll do a second video, like I said, for the front brake. Now we're going to undo your oil filter. Now this is where your oil filter sits here. You really need a claw for this. There's not a lot you can do with trying to crack this by your hand. It's a bit sort of too hard of a spot. So I'll try and do this one-handed and hold the camera. So you just better off to go and buy one of these claws. They're only about 20 bucks, and it just sort of saves you a lot of hassle. So see if we can do this one-handed. That's a bit hard to see, like the fingers in the way, but start undoing it now. Now with your oil filter, don't pull it off straight away. What you're best off doing is loosening it off like that. Give it a couple of turns, and then just leave it sit there, and then that way it'll actually drain down and go down into the pan rather than drain all over the engine. So that's my tip. So just drain that, leave that sit, for as long as the oil's draining out of the sump as well, and you won't get makes yourself a huge mess. Okay, now while you're under here, it's a good time to check all your CV boots. Make sure there's no splits or anything in any of these CV boots. Check the inner and outer one. Normally the front ones will always go on this outside if you have a split. So if you have a split in them, you need to get them repaired. But it's a good time to just check all your ball joint boots, make sure they're all okay. Have a look in here. You can't really see too much, but you can check in here, check your bushes on the front and rear. Normally the rear bushes will wear out before your front ones will. And while you're under, it's just a good time just to check any sort of coolant leaks or anything like that up underneath, any sort of oil leaks. It sort of gives you an indication of any sort of faults that have gone wrong with the car. Also, while you're here, check your steering rack end boots. Make sure these aren't split anywhere, because they'll need to be replaced, because you don't want to get any sort of sand or dust or stuff in there, because it will ruin the actual seal inside your power steering rack. We can slide up under a bit further. Have a look under the auto. This looks like it's got a little bit of a leak at the back of the auto here. It might probably just going to be the pan, which we'll have a look into that a little bit closer later. Check all your tail shafts. We'll just move this torch. So you want to check your tail shafts. Just get them. Make sure you can't sort of wiggle them or move them up and down. Same with the your main tail shaft. Check your center bearing here on them. This is a common sort of issue that can go wrong with them. So you just push it up and down. As long as it hasn't got too much excessive movement in it, it means it's fine. Exhaust systems on Hiluxes are really good, so you won't sort of find any sort of real issues with the exhaust or anything like that. This is your transfer case, so just check your transfer case hasn't got any leaks. Also, while you got your front wheel off, it's a good time to check your sway bar links. So just grab the links here and just wiggle them back and forth, and grab on the sway bar and just make sure there's no sort of clicking or knocking noise through there. And also check your shocks, make sure there's nothing wet around here. Check on the top as well. If there's moisture, like it looks like it's been wet and all the dirt sort of collected around there, it obviously means your shock's worn, and that might indicate, you know, a knocking noise or something like that in the suspension. And also it's a good time to check your brake lines. Just make sure they're nice and rubbery, like they're not hard or stiff or anything like that, or cracked, and just check if there's any splits or cuts or anything like that in them. This is your ABS line. You don't really need to check any of that sort of stuff, but like I said, it's just have a general look around, make sure nothing's leaking, there's no oil or anything like that all over anything. So, and then we'll move on to the back. Now once you put the wheel back on, it's a good time to check your lower and upper ball joints and also your steering rack end. So what you want to do is just grab the wheel, two hands like that, and just pull the wheel back and forth. Like, you don't need to turn it like this, but just go back and forth, and if you feel any type of clunking, that's your steering rack end. And then if you grab the bottom, so pull at the bottom and push with the top. If you can lift it like that, and you can't feel any sort of knocking noises, that's it shows that that's all good too. Now just grab a hammer. So if you get your hammer and you can get it up underneath the wheel, just try and lift the wheel like that, and if you can feel like a knocking like that, you've got to put a bit of force on it. That'll show that your lower ball joint's worn out on the thing. But this is done 145,000 K, so it's not something you're going to probably find wrong on this anyway. So, and now you've got your back wheel off. It's a good time to check in here. Just check your rear shocks. You normally won't find much of an issue in the back end of a Hilux, like I said, but just check your shocks aren't leaking. What we're going to do, we'll take the brake drum off now, and I'll show you how to check your rear brake shoes. Now, if you pull it off and you can't pull it off and you can't move this by hand, what they've got two screw bolt holes here on the actual drum. So you need to get yourself like a 12mm bolt, and you should be able to just drill them up into the threads here. And then you don't have to do it on your rattle gun, but I will. But you just do these bolts up, and you'll see it start to pull the disc, the drum away from the hub. What happens is it normally just gets caught on this edge here. So now that that's off, you can pull that off, lay it down like that. You'll always have a fair bit of dust sitting inside them. Now what you want to do, you want to check how much pad material is left on the shoes here. Now these here, you check on your leading edge here, so it's a lot lower there, and it gets thicker around the back side there. So what I mean by leading edge is because this is your brake slave cylinder here, And what this does is push out like a wheel cylinder, for those that want to be technical. This pushes out here on your brake shoe. So it obviously, this is going to be your leading edge of the pad material. So this edge here is going to wear before it wears down here, because this part here is generally not going to actually contact the drum at all. And same with on the other side. So this here is, I'd say this is probably due, I'll do this probably in the next sort of 10,000 kilometers. I will do this. It's quite thin through this edge here. It's probably only about 3 mil of material left on it. Up here we've got around about 4 or 5 mil, and here's about the same. This one's quite good the whole way around, but like I said, you're always going to get more wear on the front shoe here, because your wheel's always rotating that direction, so it's going to be grabbing more on that side there than the back side there. So that's the way to check it. While you're in here, if you see any fluid leaking out of here, out of your wheel cylinders, they'll need to be replaced. Most of them, like I said, are pretty good. You're not going to find any sort of issues with that sort of stuff like that. Yeah, and that's it. It's always good when you got it off, tap that on the ground, get all the dust that's sitting out of it. Like I'll show you here, once I tap it that way, get rid of all the brake dust, sweep it up, throw it in the bin, and we'll throw our drum back on, throw our wheel back on. And that's pretty much it for the rear end. There's not a lot else you need to check unless you've got worn out leaf springs or something like that, but that'll only be on a high mileage vehicle. Now I've had this draining for probably around about 40 minutes now, so it's probably a good time just to undo your oil filter. Everything's probably drained out of it, so you're not going to make a huge mess once you lift it off. So just wind it all the way out till it goes loose, and it will sort of drop onto its side. Now what you want to do, as you pick it up, try and turn it upright, so you've got the bottom of the housing up, so you're not going to drip anymore as you're trying to lift it out of the engine bay. And that's it. So we'll go and get our new oil filter. Now when you remove your oil filter, make sure this rubber seal always comes off with it. If that's missing when you actually take the oil filter off, it means it's still stuck down here on the housing. So you want to make sure you remove that before you put your new oil filter on. Now it's all drained. What you want to do is, see there's a bit of oil there, just give the surface of the where the oil filter mounts up to, just give it a bit of a quick wipe down so it's nice and clean. Now your new oil filters don't need to be lubed or anything like that. These come pre-sealed and they've already got the lube on the actual oil filter. We just take the plastic cover off. But if you buy an aftermarket oil filter and it doesn't have any sort of grease or any oil on it, just lube it up. Just put a dollop of oil on your hand, just run it around that seal before you put the thing on. It just helps the thing seal, and also makes it easier to get the thing off the next time you do the oil change. Now these only need to be done up finger tight or hand tight. You don't need to put any tools or anything like that on them, but just tighten them up as tight as you can go by hand. So you need to sort of get your hand in there, get them good, nice and tight. You can't go any tighter, and that's enough. Don't put any tools on them or anything like that, because you'll never get them off next time. So that's your oil filter done. We'll jump underneath now. We'll put the sump plug back in, and we'll put the new sump plug washer on it, and we'll fill the oil up. Now this is drained, like I said, for the oil filter. It's drained for about 40 minutes. It's come to a drip, which that's fine. That's slow enough. That's got enough oil out. You're not going to always get all the oil out of a sump, because they never ever will. They'll always still have some left in there. So just give it a wipe down. It's time to put your new sump plug O-ring on. So we'll get in under there. Get the head in the way. Just do it up finger tight, and then get your ratchet. Now you've got to remember, you don't need to do these up super tight. They're only holding oil in. There's no reason to hang off them. So what you need to do is do it up till it gets firm, like it is there, and then just go about another quarter of a turn like that. We'll just make sure we're on there. So just go about another quarter of a turn, and that's it. That's more than enough. You don't need to go crazy tight on these. Like I said, it's only holding oil in. You're not holding the wheel on or anything like that. So obviously clean up everything where it's all dripped and run down all up underneath, and we'll move up the top and put some oil in it. So we've drained out just on 7 litres, so taking into account the 500ml we put in for the oil flush, so it's about 6.8 litres at 6.9 litres that these take. So you can pretty much measure out 6.9 and just throw it straight in without actually even checking the dipstick. So, but your old oil, put it in your container that you used before, and take it to a tip, take it to a waste recycling centre. Don't throw it in a bin, because we want to keep our cars on the road for a long time. So recycle your oil, please. So we'll just take that off, and we'll throw some oil in it. Make sure you always give your funnel a bit of a clean out. Mine looks a little bit yuck from sitting on the shelf. And we'll get this oil filled up. Now, like most Toyotas, you need to pour your oil in reasonably slow. You can't just chug it in, otherwise it'll backfill and come out the filler. It just seems to be a thing on all Toyotas. They've all got quite a small neck to actually fill the oil up on them. So you need to, like I said, just put it in reasonably slow. Just be patient when you're filling them up, and you won't end up with oil all over the front of your motor. So we're nearly filled this up. So we've got about another litre to throw in it. Then we'll start it up, and we'll check our levels. Okay, now we've filled that up. So put your cap back on. Get it on. Right, now you don't really need to put your dipstick back in, because we're going to be checking that. So now's a good time. We'll just jump around and we'll start her up. So this has done 145,000 Ks. So when you start it, just watch your oil light there on the dash. So we'll start her up. Just run it till your oil light goes off. Let it run for about another sort of 30 seconds after that, and then we'll turn it off. So what that does, that just gives it enough time for the oil filter to fill up, because your oil filter sits upright on these too. It takes a while for the oil to push through and push up into the oil filter housing as well. So we'll just pull the dipstick out, and we'll just double check our oil level on that. Okay, so just pull your dipstick out, give it a wipe. Now, a good indication to tell whether your car's been looked after or not before you've bought it is if your dipstick's nice and clean like this on both sides, it means it's had good oil changes its life. Now, if it's sort of brown and tarnished across the bottom here, it means it hasn't really, it's missed a few of its services, which is not the end of the world. It just hasn't been looked after as well as what other ones have. Whereas this is my mate's truck, and he looks after it really well. So we'll check there. So it's literally just on the bottom of the dot there, like about 2 mils below. But we do have the front of the car jacked up. So once the car actually sits down, that'll be sweet. So like I said, we put 6.9 litres in that, and it's spot on. Okay, now we're going to change our fuel filter on our 2014 D4D Toyota Hilux. Now that's the part number if you're going to buy a genuine fuel filter. Comes with your O-ring and your cartridge filter, and that's it. They don't have a lot of parts to them. They're pretty simple. So this is your fuel filter here. The fuel filter sits in the bottom half. This is your pump for when you run out of fuel, or when you got to after you've bled the fuel, water out of the lines. So first job is just take this clip off, and then here you got a big ring. Now it should only be hand tight. You shouldn't have to struggle with this. So as you can see, that one's not even that tight. So undo this the whole way through. You're going to get a bit of fuel spillage. Do it outside. Don't do it in your nice garage floor. Now you should be able to just lift it up. Up comes your cartridge there, sitting in the fuel, and that's pretty much it. So you pull that out. That'll just pull down like that, and you actually you'll see all the diesel fuel run away. But that's your fuel filter. So if it's all dirty like that, it's done its job. It's that's all the gunk build up that's in your filter. So yeah, they're a good job to do, and they're so easy and they're cheap. You might as well just do it. Now you got an O-ring on the top here, so I'll just get rid of this. Okay, so now we'll get this filter out, because we want the O-ring. I'm going to replace the O-ring first. So now there's your O-ring here. Now your O-ring sits up in the top, this top portion of the housing here. So you should be able to just get your finger underneath it. Like I said, you don't need any tools to do this. A pair of gloves and that's about it if so need it. So that's your old O-ring. Discard that, throw it in the bin. New O-ring on. They don't go on any, they're not hard, they don't have to go on any type of direction or anything like that. And that's it, O-ring fitted. So you get your new fuel filter. Now it's got the seal here on the top, that's what actually holds it into the body. So turn your body up, you'll see that there's a mount point there where it clips into. So we'll push that in. Right, now just sit your cartridge back on. This one's got a boost line in the way, so make sure the thing sits down nice. Then you want to make sure your plastic screws takes up nice and even. goes on even. Don't force it on, just make sure it goes up nice and light and easy like that. You don't want to be forcing the thing on there and cross threading it. It's obviously a bit slippery with all the diesel on it, so just keep winding it. So just wind up till it's pretty much hand tight. You don't want to go overboard on the thing. Plug your little fuel sensor back in. This is your sensor that tells you if you've got too much water in the fuel. And now this is your pump. So now you've got to pump this a whole heap of times. It'll be quite loose to start with, and you want to pump it till it gets nice and firm. So we just keep pumping away. Okay, so now it's starting to go hard. So we go around and we'll start it. We'll just give it a wipe down. I'll just get my mate to start it, and we'll check for the leaks. No, it doesn't matter. No. I need to run it for a second. So we'll just start it, make sure it starts. We'll check it's not leaking anywhere. That's it. Yep, so that's your fuel filter done. So like I said, check for leaks, make sure it's not leaking anywhere. Obviously wash down your diesel fuel everywhere that you spilt, because they're just, like I said, they're a bit messy to do, but they're pretty easy job to do, and there's something you should do pretty regularly. Like really, you should do the fuel filter on these probably every 20,000 k's every year, once a year at least. Like I said, because I get so much sort of crap in the fuel with diesels, and like I said, it's such an easy job to do, and you can do it with no tools at all. Just a rag and gloves if need be. You don't even need that. So that's your fuel filter done. Okay, we're up to our last job now. We're going to jump underneath and drain the diff oil. Now when you do the diff oil, a tip that I've always tell everybody, before you undo the drain, always undo the filler, because if you can't undo this and you've already drained the fluid out of there, there's no way of getting the diff oil into it. So always crack the top one first, take it out. It's not going to drip out anywhere, so like I said, I always take the top one off first. Make sure you don't lose the washer. Washers on your diff, pretty much you can just reuse them. I don't really worry too much about replacing them. So we'll crack our bottom one off. Now to fill these up, you can kind of get the bottle up here with a nozzle and kind of fill it in that way. I've got a transfer pump, which is probably the easiest thing to do. You can see the diff oil is pretty clean in this. It hasn't been done all that long ago. So we'll let that drain. Now that's drained for about probably 5-10 minutes. On the bottom of your plug there, you've got a little magnet. It's always good just to clean off any type of shavings, and if you find any large pieces of metal on there, it's not a real good sign, but you will find a small amount of build up on there, which is nothing to be concerned about. You'll throw the plug in, and same as with the sump plug, you don't need to go overly crazily tight on these. Just do them up till they're firm. Some seem to get tighter over time. Like you can go a little bit tighter than your engine sump plug, because this is into quite a heavy duty steel housing. Now what I've got to fill the oil up with is one of these transfer pumps. I'll just see if I can get in the shot there. So all you need to do, stick it in. Like I said, you can pour it in if you haven't got a pump or something like that, because you've got quite a bit of room up in here underneath the tray. So what we need to do now is to start pumping. Okay, after a fair bit of pumping, once it starts coming out of the top of your diff, that's enough. That means you're full. So just throw your plug back in. It doesn't matter if it's got a little bit more in it. You're not going to massively overfill it or anything like that. The same as this, you don't need to go overly tight. Just do it up firm, give it a couple of whacks, and that's it. You don't need to go crazy mad tight on these sort of things. So, and that's it. That's our service done. We'll wipe that down, give it a bit of a clean. Now the rear diff we just filled up. It just took 3 litres, so you want to get yourself at least a 4 litre one of these before, so you've got enough to fill it up with. Now that wraps up today's service. I hope this helps you. I hope this saves you some money if you've got a Hilux and and you're reasonably handy, but you're not sort of sure and not have the confidence to do it yourself. I hope this video sort of shows you enough detail of what to look for. Like I said, this is only a basic service with your fuel filter and stuff like that. So anything extra like shocks and stuff like that, I'll have to do another video for, maybe in the future if my mate's vehicle starts to need any of that sort of work. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you made it all the way to the end of the video. It's a long video. I don't like to skip steps. I like to show you everything the whole way through, so there's no sort of questions unanswered sort of thing with doing a service. But if you do have any other comments or feedback, just leave them in the comments there. Give me a thumbs up on the video if you like what you saw. Subscribe to the channel. It helps me do more videos. Not necessarily, you might not be interested in other videos that I do, but just the extra subscribers helps me, like I said, it motivates me to do more videos. And with a couple of kids, it's hard to get the time to do these videos, but I enjoy doing them, and like I said, I like to help people save a bit of money. So anyway, thanks heaps for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Cheers, see ya, bye.